Want to beat your mates at fantasy football? I've got a little secret for you.
Fantasy Football Hub offers AI team ratings to enhance your team, AI recommended transfers to ensure you make the right decisions, and a new AI assistant chatbot, all designed to help you win your FPL mini league. Upload a screenshot of your FPL team for an instant free AI team rating. And if you sign up and don't win your mini league, we'll even refund your membership. Terms apply. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast from Fantasy Football Hub. My name is Fergi, and I'm here as usual with Rich Clarke. Rich, how are you? And how is your tinkering coming along?
Hi, Fergie. Hi, everyone. Yeah, good. Trying not to tinker every day. However, I have had I've done a bit of other content this week with Jack on YouTube, so I had to put a draft together for that. But I've changed that for this particular pod, so I am iterating on it. But I'm going to leave it now till this weekend's games have cycled through before I look at it again. I think changing it every time one person scores in pre-season is a little excessive, so I'm just holding back till early next week now.
Yeah, it's the way it is this kind of season. Every time something happens, you just think, oh, it's these early clues in it. But yeah, right, Rich. I think I've changed mine quite a lot over the last few days. But I think the main structure's there. You know, it's just the individual picks now for me. I think I'm settled on the structure, but we'll talk about that. Today, as you can see, everyone, we are joined by the wonderful Big Man Bakar. Bakar, great to have you with us. I take it you're just a little bit excited for the big kickoff in just over a week's time.
Hi, Fergie. Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Extremely excited. I mean, I'm actually a bit opposite. As in, I know the best Haaland draft, Salah draft, the best Salah plus Haaland draft that I will pick should I go ahead with the structure, but I haven't really decided on the structure. So I'm a bit different from you from there, Fergie, because you're settled on the structure. I'm not settled on the structure because, in fact, I just tweeted it today that, you know, every time I make a Haaland draft, you know, I look at the team. I sometimes don't like the bench. I sometimes don't like the starter. Then what I do is I make a Salah draft. I like it for a bit. Then I realize it doesn't have Haaland, right? So what I do is I make a draft with both Haaland and Salah, and then I just feel as if you know, the rest of the squad is too weak. And I've been in this loop over the past week, and I just keep going back and back and back. So it's just me deciding on a structure, which is just making me go back and forth, and that's something which I'm struggling deciding. And hopefully, you know, after this this podcast, I mean, I'm sure I'll be closer to sort of deciding where to end up.
Good stuff. We hope so. What's your take, Bakar, on kind of, you know, the game itself this year, the changes and the kind of price? We don't want to kind of go into depth in it all, but what's your overall take? Is it positive? And you know, is it getting your juices flowing?
I mean, I must commend FPL for the job they've done. I think they've done a tremendous job, to be very honest, because the very fact that, you know, all these drafts that you make look close together and there's no obvious correct draft to go for. I mean, even if someone ends up, let's say, having a really quick start to the season, it will come down to luck because there are a variety of good drafts that can perform equally well. So that is just to do with the pricing, is simply because I think apart from one or two players, FPL have nailed the pricing, especially the premiums. The very fact that you now have to decide, you know, which one of Haaland or Salah to go for means that they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, and I did a draft earlier, and I was really happy with it. I recorded a video with Jack, which is going out on this channel tomorrow. And I was really happy with my team, and I was like, "Oh, do you know what? I've solved it." And then I realized I didn't have Salah, Son, Palmer, you know, kind of any of these, you know, real elite, you know, FPL players in, and you know, I didn't have Trent, didn't have an Arsenal defender, and you think you can almost, well, you can make a complete alternate 11 to your 11. And it be incredibly competitive, and you know, and would have as much chance of outscoring your current 11, I think. So yeah, you know, I think FPL have done a great job with the pricing. It's just going to make it so interesting. I haven't seen many teams exactly the same. There seems to be some kind of the Haller drafts have a lot of similarities. I think the Salah ones do too as well. But there's so many different players in all the positions that I haven't seen many kind of like for like 11s, which in previous years we have seen, haven't we? So, Rich, what's your kind of thoughts over the last? Had another week to kind of mull over all this stuff.
Absolutely. No, I think again, I'd echo what you both say. I think they've got it absolutely right. The fact that there's no, despite however bullish someone can be on social media about their team being the best team, we don't really know. Even the modelers are struggling to, have a clear winner in terms of a strategy, without any data yet. Got to remember it's only game week 1, and that once, someone scores a brace, a couple of people emerge from these packs of 6.5s, these 5.5s, or there's a team starts to gel early and play well and overperform, everything is going to gravitate towards them. And so it's really lovely to see that there's going to be, half a dozen different strategies out the gate, and not a kind of, this camp versus that camp type thing straight away. I really like the diversity. It doesn't, we all just hope we're on the right horse, right? So that's just the way it is. But I think if you set up right structurally and really think through your plans, and I think we're going to get into a bit of strategy in today's pod, then you should go well.
Yeah, you're right. So today is our kind of official Game Week 1 preview. Obviously, we talked last week quite a lot. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. We had a fantastic hour or so with Luke Williams Disable last week around kind of macro strategy. Today, we're going to focus a bit more, on Game Week 1, but chat a bit more around strategy about, potentially hoping to get a fast start, look at potential wildcard points, the saving of the transfers, Bakar and Rich are both incredibly well versed on, on all these different sort of strategies, wildcard opportunities and things. So we're going to talk a bit about that. Hopefully refine our teams a little bit more, share our latest drafts, and some exciting news. Our weekly competition is back with a fantastic prize. So for those of you who've been around for quite a while, we gave away a mug every week for a few years, for those who guessed the highest FPL point scorer for the week. We don't have mugs anymore, but I think we've got something better, which we will share later. So stay tuned for that later on. Welcome everyone in the chat. We've got John Tyner, Picture the Scene, Animations, Graham Buckley, Paul Krashitsa is in South Africa. London Red says, evening Fergie and all. Thursdays and Green Arrows. He's on his holidays, summertime. Living is easy. Super excited for 24-25. Absolutely. United is in. I'm 1974 is in as usual. Cedric Levy, Jared, Sean Kelly, Jovan Kavetsky, Brian, Sean Kelly, Phil Wright, Dan Megan, Immortal Technique, Aaron Alexander, FPL Sparta, FPL Rubber Ducky. It's been a while. Disable is in. Luke is in from last week as well. Great to have you all with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, before we kick off, do you want your FPL team rated for free? And do you want weekly transfer recommendations driven by artificial intelligence? If you do, you can click the top link in the description below. Go straight to Fantasy Football Hub to get your team rated instantly by uploading a screenshot of your FPL team. It literally takes seconds. We'll be showing our latest drafts and ratings later in the show. And if you do join for a full package as a paying member of the Hub, we're so confident in our tools and AI that we are offering win your FPL mini league or your money back. And with 50% off, there's never been a better time to join us at the Hub. So, Rich, you kind of asked earlier. You said, let's have a look at a fast start. Let's have a look at the first 3 fixtures of the season. And do you want to kick us off with your thinking on, how to set our teams up to get a fast start and what we should be thinking around wildcards and stuff?
Yeah, I think I partly due to a little bit of iteration over drafts. You've started off with a Haaland only draft, then a Salah draft, then a, what did you call it? A Harler draft, I think the hybrid of the two. And going back and forth of this, as sure most of our listeners have done this and worked out that you can't really cover everything if you go Salah and Haaland together. You certainly can't, look at, covering Arsenal and Tottenham and other teams that you'd like to have players for as well. So I think if you look at the first 3 fixtures, that leads us into, I think, a wild card in early September. And the first international break comes after 3 matches, just 3 matches, and that's a quite a nice chunk of data to consider. Certainly more than we know now. We'll know a lot more about some of the form players who've emerged early, and just taking a shorter lens, because most of the content has looked at sort of 6 to 8 week fixture window. If you just look at a 3-week fixture window, which I think you might have on the screen now, you'll see that Arsenal, just shoot to the top of that list in terms of the elite teams that are out there, and they to me look like a pretty safe haven to put your investment money in early on. We've just seen them play Leverkusen last night, German champions who didn't lose a league game the whole season. They only lost, I think, in the Europa League final. I know it's a pre-season warm-up game, but they just walloped them 4-1. Saka got 45 minutes. Havertz looked really, really good. Jesus played well. I haven't seen the whole game, but I've seen some highlights. And this was just one pre-season game last night. So that's just sort of swayed me almost all the way back to my initial draft, where I wasn't going with Salah and I had Saka in there, and I definitely had at least one Arsenal defender, and I'm sort of back on that. And then maybe you go Havertz up front as well, and look at all of these options, because you want to get out of the gate with a fast start. 2 home games, Wolves in the first game, Brighton in the third game. You pretty much nail on 1 clean sheet, possibly 2 from those 2 games, and who knows how they're going to go against Villa in the second game. So Arsenal are really back in my thoughts if you just take that lens. But personally, I'm not someone who wild cards early. I have hardly ever done it. I will patiently back my players for a longer period than that, because I always think, well, we've got a wild card right now, so I can set up a team to do well for longer, rather than just get a few weeks of information and then wild card to the best players. But I know that there are many, and perhaps Bakar can help me out here, who have a contra strategy to that and think that this is the season where you've got to get out the gate early, got to save some transfers, keep them, and then wild card. So these are my early thoughts, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just looking at the fixtures, the kind of teams, as well. A lot of the players that we are seeing are appearing in these these top few. Forest, they looked at different teams towards the back end of last year. There's some really popular players all the way from the keepers, all the way through to defenders to midfielders, and Chris Wood up front. Arsenal, as you mentioned, Newcastle, a lot of people have got double or triple Newcastle. Everton defense improved massively as well, and there's lots of players up the top there. So yeah, Bakar, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I've sort of looked into different windows for wildcarding this season. I don't think there is a clear-cut window to say that, oh yes, this is definitely the right or the optimal window to play the wildcard in. I think it is up for debate. There are different viewpoints of different FPL managers, depending on the kind of manager you are. So if anyone's looking to wildcard before Game Week 4, like Rich was suggesting, this would basically be during the first international break. I guess the main sort of advantage would be that you can perhaps be a bit more aggressive with your Game Week 1 selection. You can perhaps build your team value, because it will be the early in the season. So I assume a lot of people will be invested, and prices will be volatile. It also possibly allows someone who wants to start with Haaland for the Ipswich fixture to possibly start with him and then just dump him on the wildcard later. And from Game Week 4, there are certain teams like, for example, Chelsea, Aston Villa, Everton, Man United, you can easily then jump on. So, for example, Aston Villa is actually a very good example, because Aston Villa, their first 2 fixtures, West Ham away and then Arsenal at home, they're not exactly the best of fixtures, but you'd actually want some Aston Villa coverage after Game Week 3, Game Week 4. And this wildcard would allow you to do that along with some of the other teams that I've mentioned. Having said that, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the strategy for 2 reasons. Firstly, I think 3 weeks is probably too less of a sample to sort of decide that I want to make my long-term team. Let's say I want to pick some of my players in my long-term team on the basis of 3 weeks of data. I think that is too low. And secondly, I think I would rather give myself the opportunity to bank a few transfers before I decide to wildcard early. So let's say that's why I think a window like Game Week 6, which I'll come to later, might be more popular than wildcarding in Game Week 4 because then that would give me more time to potentially accumulate more transfers before I wildcard. So this season, and this is something which we sort of need to tune and change our thinking, is that FPL have sort of allowed us to accumulate our transfers, and these transfers can then be carried through after the wildcard as well. So you can potentially use your wildcard early because the threshold of wildcarding, in my opinion, has gone down because this strategy where you can potentially save your transfers to potentially navigate a mini crisis through injury later allows you to use the wildcard relatively early.
Yeah, I agree. What's your current thinking then, Bakar? Are you planning a wild card at all yet, or are you just going to remain kind of open and plot your team through to game week 5 and 6 and take your view? I suppose the beauty of saving transfers back, and this is different. So to kind of Rich's point earlier, he made around he's never wild carded early. I think fundamentally the whole game has changed now because you can wild card in game week 4 and still have 3 transfers in the bank, or two or 3. You can wild card in 4 or 5 and still have a lot of transfers in the bank if you say if you save them back. So have you got a kind of a timeline in mind yet, or not?
Yeah, I mean, generally, window 4, the game week 4, game week 6, game week 12, they are the ones that come to mind for wildcard windows because of fixture swings, because of international breaks. But I think I'm currently in the camp where I want to stay flexible and I don't really want to commit to a wildcard strategy while I'm picking my game week 1 squad. That's why I sort of want to pick a squad which has reasonable squad depth so that I can, save as many transfers as possible. I just want to be in a position where my team can stay stable for a few weeks. If push comes to shove, then I will wildcard later if my team needs it. For example, let's say if there's any random week where there are injuries, or if let's say any bargain value enablers emerge at some point and I feel as if I must jump on them and change my structure, then I will. But as of now, I think it's probably wise to start the season without committing to a specific wildcard week.
Yeah. What about yourself, Rich? Have you got anything in mind? Are you going to go for like a fast start and then just see how it goes, or?
I don't think so. I've seen some quite a bit of opinion and content out there about the need. This is the season when you need to get out, early. You need to be off to a good start, and very much, my experience last year of having a poor start and being sort of 2.8 million after 8 weeks, and then spent 30 weeks clawing that back gradually. It was painful. So I think all of this comes with the caveat that if you get off to a steady start, you don't need to panic. You don't need to start wild carding if you're a millionth after 3 weeks or anything. You just need to be take stock each week but start to consider your rank. Don't let it drop too low because it's an awful long slog from X millionth. Yes, you've got time before Christmas to get back up the ranks, but you must keep an eye on it, and the wild card can be used to turn things around if your initial selections were not correct. But no, I'm not locking in. I've seen some very aggressive selections that just target those first 3 weeks of fixtures. That's why we got you to put that lens up. But if you just go all your eggs in there and don't look at the longer term runs for, say, Liverpool and City and that kind of thing, then you may be going to lose out.
There's a few things as well. I know it's going to be different this year in terms of potentially chip strategy, but if you use your first wild card in game weeks 3 or 4, you're kind of stuck with your team, really, aren't you? Well, definitely until game week 19. But I'm assuming we're still going to be using our second wild card around the biggest of the small double game weeks, which is generally around game week 30. It means you've got potentially between 25 and 35 game weeks to manage your team solely on transfers then. So it's all very well getting a fast start, and a fast start could be 20-30 points ahead of your rival. That's a pretty hefty lead after 3 weeks, but over 20 weeks that's nothing. That's like a point a week. So yeah, it's easy. I think it is easy to kind of look and say let's fly out and get a big rank, get a 20-30 point lead, but there's going to be lots that will. There's a really good point from Jared in the chat. He says, I don't think it'll be as simple as saving transfers for after the wild card, lots of problems arise, and bandwagons that are hard to ignore as well. There will be bandwagons, right? At the moment, you can't see them, but there will be. It could be Rodgers for Villa. It could be Ahmad for Man United. It could be it could be someone else. It could be a 4.5 million. It could be a 4.5 million forward, which completely changes the whole structure of your team. So I do think wild card and early, while it has its merits, and it's really nice to get a big fast start, but a lot of times these things don't start to emerge till game week 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then you're kind of stuck with what you want, and then you're using your transfers to restructure rather than to actually get your team forward. So I think I'm a little bit more in the try and save transfers back, which will be tough, right? Because we all know it's easy to say, I'm going to set my team, I'm not going to touch my team for 3 weeks. And it's not so much the injuries. We will get injuries. It's the bandwagons. It's these, if Rodgers for Villa goes and scores, gets a goal and assist on the first day, it will all be like, will we itching to go and get him, sort of thing. So interesting chat. Have you thought at all, Bakar, around your chips and stuff, or is it just a case literally of just leave them all to the back end of the season? Have you had any thoughts on how the new change is going to impact your strategy?
So far it's all about the first wildcard. I've looked at different windows for it, but apart from that, the other chips I'll be saving till later on in the season. Another sort of point I'd sort of like to mention is that generally I'd like to sort of play the first wildcard after a point where I've had a reasonable amount of info on the new managers and some of the new signings as well. So we know Liverpool have a new manager, Chelsea have a new manager. Is 3 games enough for for deciding what system is working, whether we want to invest in those teams? I'm not so sure. So that's why I think Game Week 6 is going to be popular, to be very honest, because that's actually a window after City and Arsenal play in Game Week 5. So I think Game Week 6 is actually going to be the first time where you'd actually want to spend, whatever free transfers that you accumulated. And I can see that being really, really popular for transfers, simply because Arsenal have a very good run of fixtures. City have a very good run of fixtures. In fact, if you look at Arsenal's fixtures in Game Week 6 and 7, Arsenal are playing Leicester and Southampton Game Week 6 and 7 at home, right? So this is going to be a really popular week for transfer swings. Yeah. So there is definite merit to sort of wildcarding before Game Week 6. I can sort of see the argument. But the counter argument then is that if you're picking a team for 12 weeks, then maybe that team is not too dissimilar to the team that you're picking for 6 weeks, and that both teams should score similar over a long-term period. So yeah, that's why I'm sort of content with not really committing to a strategy, because if I think if I play the long game, I think I'll be fine.
I think another point, really good one you made there, Bakar, but as well, by Game Week 3, we're not going to have seen at all how teams in Europe are going to play the European fixtures in terms of squad rotation and things as well. By the time it gets to Game Week 6, 7, and 8, we'll have seen a few Champions League games, Europa League games, and there tends to be patterns, don't there? Of who starts in which one as well. So we'll be a lot more clued up on what the Premier League teams are kind of looking like. I think it was Brighton last year, I think I remember, seemed to have a different sort of team for Europe, didn't they, than they did the Premier League, for example, and things. So, yeah, really good points. Richard, anything to kind of add before we move on at all?
No, I think that's been useful. I think, but just speaking personally as well, I think I'm going on holiday between Game Week 3 and 4, so that's never a good time to be on a wild card. So don't let FPL ruin your holiday, your summer holiday, or whenever you might be taking a break. It's not worth it. You certainly don't want to be drafting when you're on your sunbed or whatever. So
talking about that,
make it so you've got some time.
Abdullah in the chat, just a random comment, says, FPL ruined my marriage. So thanks.
I really hope it didn't.
Thank you, Abdullah, for that. Hopefully it didn't, obviously, but yeah, thanks for the comment. Rich, there's been a few players as well who have either moved around, who could be moving around, which could impact our Game Week 1 team. So, every draft we put out at the moment, every piece of content we do, there's all these caveats, right? But if so-and-so does this, if so-and-so moves, wherever else. It doesn't obviously impact the team they're leaving, the team they're moving to, and the player themselves, but it could impact other picks and players as well, couldn't it? So we pulled a few out here. Do you want to kick us
pulled
off?
a few out. Yeah, I mean, I think this is really, I guess this describes those little puzzles, little plastic puzzles that you used to get where you move the slides across and you've got to make up the picture. It's like one of those. Everyone's draft is now pretty much, you got 8 or 9 players inked in that you want, and you're waiting for other information on some of the key positions. It could be who is the standout 4.5 goalkeeper option? Is there a 4.0 goalkeeper option? What happens if Mark Guehi leaves Crystal Palace and goes to Newcastle? If that transfer goes through this weekend, will he start in game week 1 for Newcastle? Does that make Crystal Palace's defence much weaker? Therefore, does Henderson make the right choice as the Crystal Palace number 1? Because we've got Sam Johnston on there who's asked for a move, so that pretty much inks in Henderson for me as the choice 4.5 goalkeeper. But if Guehi goes, that makes Palace's defence less attractive to me. So all of these are moving parts. The big one up the front is Dominic Solanke. Looking like he's going to move from Bournemouth to Tottenham. I think you were talking about this a week ago, Fergie, and had him in your draft. So you were ahead of the curve there. But watch everybody catch up now as that transfer gathers momentum. But again, if he doesn't have a pre-season game with the team, is he a risky pick for game week 1? So he's in my thoughts. And when you think about Solanke's price point as well, 7.5 million, that's a new sort of price point for the forward. So do we have Isak, Haaland and Solanke, in which case you're going to really struggle to fit Salah in with that formation. So again, that brings you back to thinking about your structure. And then on the other side, little bit, I've seen some detailed pods about Arsenal's pre-season and how Arsenal are going to go, and they looked really good last night, but now there's a little bit of doubt about the defense again. Gabriel's nailedness due to Calafiore's arrival, that kind of thing, just enough in the back of your mind to think, is this another Saliba or is the only safe option type choice? So yeah, lots going on here. And one of my favorites from a couple of seasons ago, Emil Smith Rowe, who I owned through his hot period, he's a real favorite of mine, and he's already scored in pre-season, looking really good for Fulham. So another option in that popular 5.5 bracket, which is very useful if you're trying to do a Harler team. So yeah, little summary there. There could have been several more added here. So
good.
It's
Gordon's
Alvarez leaving
exactly
City for
that.
like 85 million. What does that mean elsewhere? There's tons of these movements going on all the time.
There are, and I think these movements, coupled with the very gradual return as well of players from European duty, Copa America duty as well. It's like I'm kind of involved in the team that looks at all the expected minutes of Fantasy Football Hub, and we're just kind of scratching our heads at the moment because it's just incredibly tough. If there was no Euros and no kind of summer competitions, you've got a much better idea if everyone's in training and fit, but you've still got players who are still not in training, for their teams and haven't played a minute of pre-season with the kickoff 8 days away. I suppose I'm interested in asking you that, Bakar, in terms of how that affects your game week 1 picks, because there are some fantastic picks potentially. Thinking off the top of my head, Saka, Foden, and Palmer, just 3. Who will no doubt be in our teams at some point in the season. How does their potential lack of fitness ahead of game week 1 influence your decisions in your teams?
I think as long as they're fit and available and likely to start game week 1, it won't matter. I think Foden is actually the big red flag over there. I just don't think he's had any minutes at all so far in preseason, and I doubt that he's going to start game week 1 with the rate we're going at as of now. Saka, we've seen time and again he's been run into the ground by Arteta, and given that he's already played 45 minutes in the friendly yesterday, I highly doubt that he won't start the game week 1 fixture. And same with Palmer. I think Palmer will probably start as well if I had to guess. Coming to some of the signings, I mean, it's not only important about having a look at some of the players that are mentioned that may or may not move. As Rich mentioned, it's very important to have a look at some of the knock-on effect as well. So I have Andres Pereira in my squad, for example, and I'm not really sure whether he's going to stay there now that Smith Rowe has arrived. because he played in a deeper role in the recent friendly, and if he's not potentially playing in the number 10 or as playing as high up the pitch, or if he's not on penalties, then of course it doesn't make as much sense to own him. Similarly, I had Gabriel in my first draft. Now that Calafiori signed, I have slight question marks over his playing time over the long run. I'm sure he's going to start the first 2 or 3 fixtures, but once the European fixtures start, I mean, he could easily miss a fixture. So I mean, these are the kind of things that are sort of playing in my head. Maybe Gehi would be a much better option if he moved to Newcastle at 4.5. I'm not that concerned about the Palace defense, to be very honest, because there were periods last season where they played without Gehi and their defensive underlying data was still impressive. So I still think Palace will be fine. So if you're looking to pick a Palace defender, I think by all means go for it. I won't be put off this transfer that Gehi if he moves.
Yeah. Gordon's another one. Lots of people in the chat saying about Anthony Gordon. May have his head turned, may not be in the squad, maybe off to Liverpool or or somewhere else. He's a player. I don't think he's he left my team really briefly to kind of test some things around. But then when I go back to my actual team and he's not in it, I have to undo it all to get him back in, because I think if he's fit and he's firing and he's available for Gameweek 1 for Newcastle, I can't think of many better many other players I'd rather have ahead of him with the fixtures they've got. Last year he was just so consistent, especially at home. 2 of the first 3 at home, plum home fixtures as well. And his price point's a bit of an awkward one as well, because there's not many around that 7.5. You can go down to 6.5s, but listen to a fair bit of content this week. I think we touched on it last week as well. There's not many of the 6.5s. They all seem a bit punty, don't they? Whereas the 7 Eze and 7.5 and above seem a bit more nailed. So yeah, there's lots of players and potential movement, which is why we keep tinkering with our drafts, right?
It's only gonna continue, isn't it, for the next 7 days right up to the deadline. The Premier League actual transfer action won't stop just because we've got an FPL deadline. There'll still be rumour coming out next Friday when we're wherever we are finalising our teams. But there's just a lot of movement. So I would say just don't draft every day, because it will just drive you mad, because there'll be something else will happen, or another transfer rumour will emerge. So it's just, I think really what I'm trying to highlight here is it's a constantly moving beast, and therefore you need to consider all the moving pieces before you lock anyone in.
Agree. Let's have a look at the predicted points for the first 4 game weeks. Last week Salah was top. Now Haaland is top, 30.7, but just ahead of Salah, 30.1. You can't split those two really. Obviously, we all have to make our own decisions on whether we think Salah is going to maintain his rate of scoring. I think one of the main reasons I'm on Haaland is I just think there is a question mark with Salah. Another year older, new manager, new system potentially. So nothing has changed for Haaland really. He's still surrounded by world-class players. He knows his job inside out. Banged a hat-trick in last weekend against the team he's faced in game week 1. I mean, it just feels to me that if you're going without Haaland, just asking for trouble really, and that's how I see it. But the AI team, which we'll look at in a minute, and there's lots of other teams without Haaland, look seriously good as well. Isaac is third. I don't think I've seen a team, any draft anywhere without Isak. I think he's actually been underpriced at 8.5. I think I still have picked him if he was 9 or 9.5, sort of Watkins sort of price, to be honest. Saka is fourth. You mentioned earlier, Bakar, Saka. That this could be the year for him, and I do agree in terms of he could have his real, he's been fantastic anyway, but he could really move into that premium bracket. I think this year, next year maybe looking at kind of 11.5 potentially. Eze is really high considering his price. I was surprised when I saw this. 25.8 predicted points in the first 4 weeks. Then Palmer, then Son, then De Bruyne, Gordon, Havertz and Bruno. I'm kind of interested. Bruno's one I'm interested in because across all fantasy games last year, he actually scored pretty well, but he just had he and Man United, they had a dreadful season. Surely, to goodness, this year, if United even have a half decent season, if they're challenging properly for the top four or wherever else, he's got to have a big season. And he's only 8.5 million. He feels one that's going under the radar. But Carl, what do you think about Bruno? Has he entered your thoughts at all?
Yes, I really like Bruno. Actually, I've been a huge fan of him over the years. I just think, irrespective of how Man United play, he has plenty of routes to points. So even if United aren't playing well, he can still continue to accumulate some points here and there. Sure, he might not haul, but even if he gets like 5-6 points every game, it's fine. And just because of the chances that he creates, I think he was first or second for chances created last season among all players in the league. He accumulates bonus at a very, very quick rate, which allows him to get those 6, 7, 8 pointers. Even if he gets an assist, he can get high up in the bonus points. So I really like him on penalties. He's actually the kind of player whose value in my eyes has gone up this season, simply because of the new transfer rule where you can save transfers. So he's basically a player who, if you have in your squad, you can just set and forget, and there won't be any headaches with Bruno, right?
Yeah.
So you can then easily save your transfers easily. Exactly. So with no concern over minutes, set pieces, penalties, is exactly the kind of player I like to own. So I will do my best to have Bruno in my team. Now, I'm not still 100% sure whether I'll end up with him. He's not locked, but yeah, I mean, I think I will own him.
Oh, really?
Bakar, while you're on, you remember last year, I think we did a pod earlier in the season together when we were on with Fergie, and we had similar teams, and we were very much talking about Chelsea's and United's, irresistible fixtures in the first sort of game week 3 to 7 window. Do you remember that period when they played all the promoted teams and Sterling
still
scored a brace, and I think it was you said to me, you said, so Rich, who's your third Chelsea got to be or going to be? We were so certain that we were going to go all in on Chelsea and also still own Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, locked in from game week 1. I mean, I'm still scarred from that period. That was what caused my rank to plummet, sticking and being patient with those two teams who, frankly, were appalling during that period. Yeah. So I'm just seeing if you think I should just write that off, put it all behind me, or that some of that baggage is valid.
I mean, I suffer from a lack of sleep in those first 10 weeks. That's why I remember, owning both Bruno and Rashford. So, I mean, the thought process was right. That's what's the important part, right? Yeah. I still think it was right owning. Rashford had a tremendous season prior to that, right? So he was one of the standout midfielders in his price range at that point. It's a shame that he had a really poor season last year, but no one saw that coming at the point when we'd selected them in our squads. So yeah, I mean, irrespective of that, I don't really let those personal experiences affect me as much. I just focus on the information which is available at hand and what is to come. And with that, I just still think Bruno is a solid pick.
Yeah, I can't argue. And Havertz is on you as well. You mentioned earlier, Rich, I think he played number 8 yesterday, got a goal and 2 assists. He's looking all right. I know he's the forward. He's playing as a forward, so it is hard to squeeze him, especially if you do want Haaland, Haaland and Isak. And if you have got another Arsenal midfield like Saka or Odegaard, he's hard to fit in, but he does feel like one that may go under the radar, just because he's now a forward, because of his price point's a touch awkward, maybe.
Yeah, well, as well, and I found it relatively easy to squeeze Solanke into a Salahless draft, and so you only need another 500,000. So maybe a Rodgers down to a Winks will get you that extra 500,000 to go Haaland, Isak, Havertz, and have a really strong front three for those first 3 fixtures. So it's definitely possible. Yep. And if you look at the bonus point system, remember, it is geared to, forward scores. He's on 29 BPS after 1 goal. It's like, so it's going to be hard to stop the forwards getting bonus if they score in a game. So,
and Arsenal have got 2 home games in the first 3. As you said, home to Wolves, 1 home to Brighton in game week 3. So, interesting stuff. Another few names, just had some comments on Robertson. So Robertson's not flagged at the moment on FPL at all, which is why we haven't flagged him yet. But as soon as we get, I did have a look earlier, if there's been a Robertson injury. I've kind of heard it here and there, but I can't see any kind of publishings of it anywhere. But as soon as he's confirmed he is injured, we will obviously flag him, which will bump up Simicas's stock as well. Muniz is in there, and I didn't actually realise until someone mentioned it earlier. 2 amazing fixtures in game weeks 2 and 3. I know he's probably he's hardly under the radar himself, but he's got a really good run, haven't he, as well. Let's have a look at the Hub AI team so far for what it is picking. What do you think of this, Bakar? I know you won't have seen this yet, probably. It has updated. Pickford in goal, 5 million with Turner, even though we'll probably knock off Turner because he might drop. He's definitely not going to be the number 1, is he? But Pickford in goal. Robertson and Trent at the back at the moment. It really, really likes the Liverpool defenders. Looking at those fixtures, probably look how they finished the season. Robertson did finish the season really well, actually. I think he played 6 of the last 7 games, 90 minutes, and only missed 1 because he was injured. Trent in there as well, and Gvardiol, so a really, really heavy defence there with Barco and Feist as 2 playing for 4 millions. Midfield, Salah, Saka, Eze, Son, and Brereton Diaz has made it. His stats obviously carrying over from last year. 5.5 million now. Scored yesterday. Scored a really good goal yesterday. Actually, I don't know if you've seen it, but he's a playing 5th mid at the moment. And then just the forwards of Isak and Muniz up front with Stewart as as likely a non-playing. Wow. A non-playing one, so
really, really minimal bench, isn't it? It's literally the least
bench.
amount you could spend.
It is, and it's big at the back.
I mean that's what I was coming to. This team, if Son and Brereton can be converted to Nkunku and Fernandes, that extra 0.5 million can be used on the bench, and it would look even stronger. And I'm not even mentioning downgrading Pickford to a 4.5. So I've looked at a similar setup with triple Liverpool. It is really, really strong. The only caveat is that it does not have Haaland, but I love the squad.
Yeah, it is. I think in terms of this team, again, this is aside from Isak maybe, and maybe Eze, this is kind of a different 11 to a lot of other ones. You can have like for like 11s, can't you? Where it's incredibly strong. So yeah, it's hard to argue with this team. I think the only thing you could argue with maybe is that there's not much flexibility up front. You're kind of stuck with the price points of 8.5 and 6, so it's hard to get out of them. But then, if the wing backs do the business, and what in midfield, Salah, Saka, and Son. Boom, right? Christ, and that's Eze as well in there. Isak and Muniz. It's hard to argue. If Haaland doesn't, if Haaland doesn't bang in braces. Even if he scores a goal, even if he gets a goal every game, probably not enough, is it, to compete against these sorts of teams? You're really banking on Haaland smashing it in game week 2, and things to compete against this. So it's a really, really good dilemma, bit of an enigma. It's fantastic, but yeah, interesting team, and obviously we will keep updating all the expected minutes.
It's changed quite a bit from last week, hasn't it?
Yeah,
it really
we've as well as I say, one of our smart developers, Steers, has developed something on the X-Mins now where we can ease players in and out of the team. Before it was pretty much you put expected minutes for a player and it just kind of stuck through. So if you thought someone was going to play, Foden's a good example. It was if we don't think Foden is going to play much, if at all, of game week 1, and then ease in game week 2, and then probably come fully in 2 or 3. There wasn't really a way of doing that on expected minutes, but we've implemented that now. So, our expected minutes for Foden now, I think, is like 30 minutes game week 1, like 30, 40 minutes game week 2, and then up to 80 in game week 3. And also the deputies in those as well. So, we've got kind of Oscar Bob as the deputy for Foden, for example. So his minutes start high and now naturally go lower. We've implemented that across the whole player base. So it changes a lot, but it does give a much more representative kind of reflection of what will be happening with the minutes, which obviously impacts these massively. So yeah, it's a massive change, and it's fantastic for us, and fantastic for the AI. So hard to argue with that team, right? It's if Haaland doesn't smash it, that team is going to do well. And even if he does smash
is it just me, or I just want to sort of add here, Fergie, is it just me, or do the Salah draws generally look better than Haaland draws on paper? Like because you get the extra premium mid or the extra premium defender, the Salah draws they look better on paper. It's just the game week 2 fixture where Haaland can just go ballistic, and his ownership is actually increased at the time of recording this podcast. Haaland has his ownership is in excess of 40%, and you can only expect that to rise till the game week 1 deadline. That's the issue, right? So if Haaland gets like a hat trick in game week 2, and you don't own him, other people, they might get like a 34-point head start, right? I mean, at least a 20-point head start either way, right?
Yeah.
If he gets that hat trick, that's the issue with his ownership.
It feels to me as if that's the thing you've got to guard against in terms of like a shield pick. You need to have Haaland in your squad to cover that Ipswich fixture. The Salah Ipswich fixture doesn't feel as scary to me. I don't know why, because actually I just think I can cover that with Saka at home to Wolves. And I think that he's got a great chance of getting at least 10 points in that fixture. So I'm not particularly worried about not owning Salah so much, but I wouldn't be able to enjoy the football next weekend, the game week 2, if I didn't own Haaland. And I say you might as well have him in from the start just to cover that. It's just very simple thinking. I just don't think you should overthink it. And 60% of people don't think that way, which is great for all the 40% that are on him, right? So it's
Regarding the Salah game week 1 fixture, firstly, it's obviously, I know it's Ipswich, but it's like a newly promoted team. They'll be playing at home, so obviously the crowd will be behind them. I mean, Salah could easily smash it, but I don't see this as a fixture where Liverpool will score 4 or 5 personally. I think they will win, but like not by a 4 or 5-0 margin personally.
Yeah.
Secondly, the main reason that you mentioned is because the likes of Saka is playing Wolves at home. Isak is playing Southampton home. Even Son, for that matter, playing Leicester away. These guys could come close to matching Salah, if not outscoring him.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Agree, definitely. Right. We've just got some stats. So this is going to be a new feature every week where we look at we've got some hub data that is predicting the amount of goals that are going to be scored in each fixture over the week, and also the clean sheet percentage as well. And it kind of backs of what we've just said really about 3 Liverpool players. So Liverpool are predicted to have the highest amount of goals this weekend, just over 3. Man City nearly 3, Arsenal nearly 3 as well. And then in terms of clean sheets, Arsenal have the highest chance of a clean sheet, followed by Liverpool, followed by Newcastle. So that the triple Liverpool, bearing in mind they're also home to Brighton in game week 2, doesn't look so crazy, right? So yeah, this whole Haaland Salah debate, it's going to rage on all the way through, unless one of them gets injured, or is a doubt. It really is. They've priced it so well that it's a massive debate. I mean, Haaland teams are decent, but they are a couple of unknowns. It's a really good point in the chat around Havertz saying Monkey D Ben in the chat put 8 million for a nailed Havertz is a known bargain, while someone like Nkunku is a potential bargain. And we kind of touched on it earlier, didn't we? There are certain teams like Arsenal, Man City, and you kind of know what you're going to get. We kind of know Havertz is going to play. We know he's going to do well. Whereas Nkunku, Chelsea, we're really, really unsure on how they're even going to line up. We're even unsure if I'm sure he'll start, but we're unsure if he's on penalties. We're unsure on lots of things, and in terms of the things we know, these like proven picks ahead of the ones that may or may not do well. It is normally, I think it's fair to say, the proven picks that tend to prevail before the unknowns become proven themselves, aren't they? So that's the Salah. That's the Salah draft. Is like you can build a really solid, proven team, can't you? There, you could have Saka, Son, Palmer, Isak. Whereas with Haaland, you are having to make the compromises. It's a fascinating debate. Really, really is.
Perfectly set up, and that's a really nice graphic, that Fergie. I think that really adds to the pod each week and we can crystallize our thinking about the fixtures without just going through them and saying, oh, do you think that'll be 1-0, 2-1? I think you can just see where where the goal predictions are, and it's very good for focusing on future transfers as well. So really like that.
Let's have a look at.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised to see Man City close with Liverpool. I mean, 2.87 for City it's got me thinking it's actually more than Arsenal. I'm very, very surprised to see that. But if this is true, and if City are predicted or projected to score close to the similar number of goals as Liverpool, then that's another argument actually for going Haaland.
Yeah, agree. Looking at the best cap.
Also regarding habits, just one point. I personally feel that at 8 million, if he's not playing as the striker, I think his value is actually deflated, especially when there are other options available for cheaper in the price range. For example, I would rather go with someone like a Muniz and use the 2 million in defense or midfield, because Jesus has looked sharp in preseason, and because of that, I won't feel as confident investing in Isak, in Havertz at that price when Jesus is around. I don't want him playing in a deeper role.
Havertz, Isak, and Muniz in a Salah draft. That sounds good, doesn't it? That sounds good. And then you could. I
would rather go with the power midfield and go with the cheaper forward like João Pedro or Armstrong.
Yeah, fair. Captain for game week 1. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, the beauty of it is that, again, if you decide on a one premium strategy, you can then make that choice, and there's an argument for having a power defense, a power midfield, and a power front three. No one knows exactly how it's going to go, but again, that's we just placed a bet on where we want to put that power, and if you go back and look over historical years, midfield score the most points FPL, just that blind fact. You go back over every season, the mids score more points than anywhere else. I don't see it being any different this season. The mids are very well priced, so perhaps 3-5-2 is the way to go with a cheap third striker rather than loading up on the forwards. I think we'll need to just see how that new bonus thing works out. I know we've modelled it based on last season and seen that forwards should benefit, but midfielders are going to do well too. So interesting stuff.
It is, and
yeah, guys, just one last point to add on the Salah Haaland discussion. Are you guys fairly set on picking one or the other as opposed to both? Because I don't think I'm going to be picking both. I think it personally, for me, the drafts I've looked at, I think the squads are a bit too weak.
I'll answer that. I wanted certain bits of information to be answered. One of them that I was desperate to know is Salah going to get any sort of Saka going to get any sort of preseason? He got 45 minutes last night. He's got one game to come at the weekend. I imagine if he gets an hour at the weekend, I think we can completely relax about Saka as being the choice in that 10 million position. If you're going for a 10 million mid or 10, I have Foden, Saka or Palmer type mid, for me that gets him in, and that makes it easy for me to go without Salah, and I have 2.5 million more to spend on other things, and that to me that just helps complete the puzzle. But that's because I really like Saka, and I had him for 38 games last season, and he never left my side. So it's just easy for me. I think he can match Salah all season.
I'm definitely on one or the other, and one Haaland at the moment. I like my team, but then I do keep flicking back to that AI team, and the AI is smart, right? It looks at the value, it looks at where the points are going to be scored across the team. There's no bias in there. It's all data. I just can't help but think, is the other way the right way to kind of go, but this is the beauty of the game, and the beauty of having the AI to kind of look at as well. Because we didn't have it. I think I think it's funny because I see a lot of narratives that AI forced templates, right? But since the invention of AI, I think the AI looks very different from the templates. I think it's actually helping to deviate players away from the template, because there's been a template for years and years. Like everyone had the same team for years. I think it's different now. I really like it. It makes you look in different ways. But yeah, let's have a look at the captain for game week 1, which is obviously a big decision. So Haaland, who's just come off the back of a hat trick against Chelsea, who's playing in game week 1, 7.2. But above him so far is Salah. Now we've made a very, very minor adjustment in Salah's stats. The fact that he's playing under new manager, still comes out top. Isak is 3rd, and then Saka 4th. you know, they're all incredible picks. Rich, I'm assuming whoever you well, I don't know actually. Who is your captain for game week 1?
At the moment, I am on Isaac.
Yeah,
I
same.
feel really good about that Newcastle fixture. I just think they'll come out of the blocks fast. Just not a huge amount of data to back that up. Just hunch and the way they, fanatical St James's Park for the opening game of the season. I just think they'll absolutely gub Southampton. And I think, I think we saw it last season. I think they beat Villa 5-1 in the first game or something, didn't they? I mean, they literally will just come at them. And I think having Gordon and Isak in the side, you're off to a flyer. So I'm tempted to do that because simply Haaland and Salah have away games, and I like to captain a home player. So I'm going to ignore the price and just go with Isak, I think.
Same for me. What about you, Bakar?
I think I'm going to go with Isak or Saka, simply because their fixtures are so good. I expect both Arsenal and Newcastle to score heavily in that fixture. If there's any slight doubt about Saka's minutes, I'll go with Isak. Otherwise, I think it's a toss-up between both of them. I don't think there's a huge difference.
Interesting how we're all talking about squeezing in both Haaland and Haaland and Salah, and then we're both. The thing is, if you go with Salah, you're not captaining him in game week 1 or 2. I don't know. Does it really make a lot of sense to go with him? I don't know. He's so expensive. You're not going to captain him.
Yeah, you can only captain 1, can't you? And then from 2 to 7, you can just captain Haaland every week if you want to.
Yep, interesting stuff. Let us know in the chat who you are going to captain so far, knowing what we know so far in game week 1. Fergie is back for this year, so this is my opportunity to just go with a lowish owned player who not many people are talking about as an absolute punt in your team to maybe help you climb the ranks if this particular player kicks off. So I'm looking at this particular player. I did mention him last week actually, so he's not one completely out of the blue. And a lot depends if he stays where he's playing and players don't move and all this sort of thing. But as soon as I start to describe him, you'll probably all know who he is. But he is only 2% owned still. He's a 6.5 million midfielder who has been playing quite a lot as a number 9 in a top 6 team in pre-season. So as it stands, we haven't mentioned him so far this evening, and I'm not saying at all that he's going to be in my team in game week 1. But if you have got a 6.5 million hole in your team, I think you could do a lot worse than put Dejan Kulusevski potentially in your team, assuming obviously Solanke doesn't move and confirm the starting. But it looks like Kulusevski at the moment, if Richarlison isn't back, I don't think Richarlison's played any minutes yet, could start the season away to Leicester, home to Everton as the number 9. This obviously assumes Solanke's not there, etc. I don't think it's the worst move in the world. If you're looking to be different, 6.5 million. I know there's a lot of players in that in that market. But are you going to get many just playing as a number 9 for a top 16? I don't know. So, thoughts, Rich?
Yeah, it's bold. I'm not even sure, given the options that he has, that he'll start the game. I mean, you know Tottenham more than me, but with Brennan Johnson as an option, with Richarlison, possibly getting a start. Are you confident that he will definitely play from a formation perspective?
Well, I think it. There's obviously another week left. There can be lots of news about different things about Solanke and stuff, but at the moment they don't have a playing number 9. Johnson's been playing on the right, and Son on the left, and he's been there. So at the moment, assuming Richarlison doesn't play and Solanke doesn't play, they haven't got anyone else to kind of go there really. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean Solanke, it's cutting it fine, isn't it, to be in and
I think so.
Trained and ready for that Leicester game, even if he signs and they get it over the line next week. It does seem ambitious, to count on him. Yeah,
agree. Bakar, any interest at all if the signs are there that he may play?
Yeah. I mean, if I was free hitting in game week 1, sure, but you can't free hit in game week 1, and Spurs are being linked to Tony and Solanke, right? So I just think it's too short-sighted.
Fair. Can't argue. It's definitely short-sighted, but he could kick off in game week 1. He'd be a very, very low-owned player. Competition time. Competitions are back this season. And this season, our weekly prize has had a big upgrade with a chance to win some sensational award-winning curry pies, believe it or not, courtesy of Muckagee's Asian Pie and Catering Company. Simply guess and comment who is going to be the top scoring FPL player for game week 1. So comment in the chat who is going to be, and if you're right, you'll win a box of I think it's either 5 or 6 in a box of these incredible pies, with a choice including their famous Mother Clucker, Creme de la Hen, the Bulldozer, and so much more. I can assure you they look and taste incredible. I'm hungry just looking at them. And they're worth about 25 or 30 pounds. They are insane, and we're giving one of these away every single week. Also, if you want some for yourself, you can just click the link in the description below, and you can get 10% off your first order. Watching the football with a Muckagee's curry pie is a match made in heaven. I urge you to give them a go. So don't forget to comment in the chat on who will be the top the top point scorer in FPL this coming week for a chance to win a box for yourself for absolutely free. This competition is restricted to the UK for shipping purposes. Before we have a look at our drafts, just a reminder, you can get your own FPL team rated now for free using the top link in the description below. Let us know your ratings in the comments if you do. For those who want a bit more, such as recommended transfers, Opta stats, expert team reveals, dedicated WhatsApp groups, so much more, you can get 50% off everything. And we're so confident if you don't win your mini league, we'll give you your money back at the end of the season. Terms and conditions apply. There's never been a better time to join the hub. Let's have a look at our drafts. Bakar, got your latest draft up. You just want to quickly talk us through it?
Yeah, so I've gone with Flecken in goal. The short-term fixtures aren't great to begin with, but because I haven't really planned a wildcard as such, I think he's fine for the long term. I think over the course of the season, he will be close to the top scoring 4.5 million goalkeepers. Now, the thing which I like about him is that he's playing for a Brentford team, which in the past 3 seasons, they've been ranked in the top 5 teams for shots conceded from outside the box, more shots conceded from outside the box. Yet they're in the top 8 teams for fewest XG conceded. So this is exactly what you want with the goalkeeper, for him to concede a lot of shots, but not high quality ones. So I've gone with him. The only sort of risk there is that he isn't exactly actually a very good goalkeeper. So he may let in the odd goal or so, but at least I have the 4 million backup. So if he gets dropped, I will still at least have a playing goalkeeper. Then I have Trent at 7 million. He's been in every one of my drafts, hasn't really left my team. I just think Liverpool will make a very quick start to the season. And yeah, I mean, especially if I'm not having Salah, I want some sort of attacking upside from their team, and Trent is there. I was actually having a look at Arne Slot's data from the Eredivisie, and his teams they were good defensively, but the fullbacks are very, very attacking as well. They had they accumulated a healthy XGI per 90. So if Trent comes anywhere close to replicating that, I think he will be a very good option. Then I have Pedro Porro. I think Pedro Porro is sort of close to being locked in my team as well. I don't necessarily like him as a standalone option to play in week out, because some of the fixtures that Spurs have in game week 3, 4, and 6 are tough. They're playing Newcastle, Arsenal, and Man United. But apart from that, they're playing Leicester in game week 1, Everton game week 2, Brentford game week 5. Now, Rich sort of emphasized on making a quick start. I really think that Porro is that kind of player who can sort of help you get off to a good quick start. Now I have Konsa with him to rotate for some of his tougher fixtures. Now when Porro has some of those tough fixtures, Konsa can fill in with Everton at home and Wolves at home in game week 4 and 5 respectively. Then I have Saliba, who's a decent long-term pick. Probably my pick of the Arsenal defenders, given that Calafiori is signed and there's some doubts regarding the minutes elsewhere. Then Barco is there for the 4 million enabler. In midfield, I have Saka. Now he rotates well with captaincy with Haaland. Then there's Eze, who's been in every single one of my drafts. I just think he'll be Palace's talisman this season. Then there's Bruno. I've already talked about him. Then the risk there is with Andreas. Now I have Andreas as my 5.5 mid. I will keep a very close eye on him in the friendly. If he plays in a deeper position like he did in the previous friendly after Smith Rowe signed, then I will look to upgrade him to Nkunku, possibly funded by a Saliba downgrade. And then I have Harry Winks as the 4.5 million mid. And then up front, Haaland and Isak sort of pick themselves. And there's João Pedro, who I may replace with Adam Armstrong if he sort of fails to prove his fitness. But yeah, I mean, most of my picks are locked, apart from let's say the two cheap mids, the cheap forward, and maybe Saliba and maybe Barco. I think, yeah, apart from that, I think around 9 to 10 of the team picks are locked.
I like the Bruno pick, Bakar. I've not seen him in a lot of
Yeah,
drafts, but I
Bruno.
really like it. I completely agree with what you said earlier. You kind of know what you're going to get. Even if he has a bad season, he still tends to score well. You know, he gets the penalties, 90-minute man. So yeah, I really like that pick. I may
And
have
you get that Friday night. You get a player for that Friday night game
Nice
against
start on
Fulham,
it.
don't you? That you can get out the gate with a brace and be
get
top
out
of the
the gate
league
with a 15 or
first night.
16 pointer. You're set for the season, aren't you? Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. Rating, team rating, Bakar for you of 89%, 90% for the week. Good stuff. Rich, we got your team up next. Do you want to talk us through it?
Okay, yeah, I'll have to just I'll have to remind myself because I've got a 40-second lag on the screen. I can see. Let me just see what I sent you earlier. I should know it better, shouldn't I? Let me just start by talking about the goalkeepers. I think that Sam Johnston requesting a transfer away from Crystal Palace really helped, knowing that he's clearly not going to be number one and starting the season. So that has cemented the 4.5 choice for me. So I've gone for Henderson in goal. I have had drafts with Raya in them. I've had drafts with Pickford in them last week, spending more money, but that was partly because there was no clear standout 4.5. And I think my YouTube video yesterday had Flecken in it. So, good choice, Bakar. No, nothing wrong with Flecken at all, but I just prefer Palace's fixtures to Brentford's at the beginning. And so I've gone for Henderson now. He's a clear-cut choice. I put Saliba in because of the doubt over Gabriel. I like Gabriel for attacking threat more than Saliba, but I got again a battle scar from last season was that team leak on the first day that I didn't get, and everyone switched to Saliba except me. It felt so. I'm just going to put Saliba in there, a bit like a Virgil van Dijk pick. He's just going to play every game, and that's fine. I've got Guardiola in the team over Trent at the moment. I want some City cover again. A player I didn't own in the running for last season and wish I had. So this is an opportunity to get him in for City's run. I think he's pretty sure to start the season, and I like their fixtures and I like his attacking threat as well. I think Luke was saying last week that he may not get us forward with Grealish starting the season, which is likely, but I still think as a medium term pick that Guardiola is the right one to have there. And then I've got a rotating pair of Newcastle and Villa 4.5s. I like that idea. They rotate really nicely together. Villa have a slightly iffy start, but then after game week 3-4, they really settle down. And I like Konsa as a value option, along with any of about 3 Newcastle options. So I put Hall in there, Lewis Hall, but could have Guehi in there, could have Dan Burn in there. There's a number of different options at Newcastle. And if Livramento plays because Trippier is rumored to be going to Saudi Arabia, then great. You've got a bunch of 4.5 options there. So Newcastle and Villa, I like that rotating option. And finally, Barco looks to be the most attacking 4.0. I think I prefer 1 4.0 as to 2. I just want that cover on the bench. In midfield, I've gone without Salah with this draft. I'm feeling I did have a draft this week with both of them in, but I find it's too unbalanced and there's too much compromise required. So I've got Saka in as the 10 million price point. Eze, and then one of my favourites, Anthony Gordon, has been in every draft I've had. He's never left. Neither has Eze. So they're locked in. And then I'm very between Andreas Pereira for routes to points and Smith Rowe, just because he did so well for me before. and I think is exciting. I think the safer pick is Andreas to start the season. I think he'll be on a lot of set pieces, probably penalties, as I know Muniz isn't going to take them. So Andreas or Smith Rowe, they're both the same price. I like that price point, 5.5. And I've got Rogers. Morgan Rogers is still in the draft. People have been asking, where is Adam? Adam did help me out with an affirmative that Rogers is in his draft at the moment, and he expects Rogers to start the season and to play, the majority of games, and that he will be starting Rogers in his fantasy team in most of Villa's home games. So that's nice. And if anybody knows Aston Villa, Adam Hopcroft does. So thank you, Adam. And Rogers is in. Up front, I've got Haaland and Isak, like most people, I guess, at the moment. And I've made the money. I've saved the money across the team to be able to put a placeholder in for Solanke. Now that's purely a placeholder, and if the transfer looks like it's going to drag on for the rest of August, obviously he'll come out, and I'll go for one of the 6 million options. The fact that Muniz isn't in there makes me more confident about having a Fulham mid. I don't really want 2 Fulham attackers. I think that's too much. So if you don't go for the Fulham attacker, I can have a Fulham midfielder instead. If I can find an extra 500,000, which I could do by downgrading one of the 4.5s, I may put Havertz in there up front for the first game. Really quite like that idea, because then you could come down off him for whoever emerges. So that's my thinking. There's a bit of fluidity in there, but I think I'm highly likely to go with a Haaland only draft. There's too many other good options out there if you don't have Salah as well, and I don't like the level of compromise of having them both. So I'm going to take it on.
Yeah, really nice team there, Rich.
Yeah, I love the Rogers pick. I think he'll play in game week 1, and I mean, I didn't have the 0.5 spare, but if I did, I'd almost certainly have him in my draft as well.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, mine's not too dissimilar from yours, Rich. There's no point in going through it all. I've got a rating of 90% on here, but I have been messing around my team a lot. I think my actual team reveal video with this team, which I can talk about in a lot more detail, is coming out with Jack tomorrow, and the rating's actually much higher. So obviously it was done with a fresh rating rather than making the transfers in and out. But quite like this team, I gotta be honest. I've got Pickford in goal at the moment, though if I do need to save 500,000 to move my 4.5 mid up to Rogers, which sounds like maybe a good idea, I might do that actually and get in Henderson. I do prefer Henderson. I've got Gvardiol, Pedro Porro, and Munoz from Palace, who I really like. I'm not overly keen on having Munoz and Henderson, so I just need to give that a little bit of thought. Maybe I would like some Everton coverage in there. I do fancy him to do well at the back as well. But yeah, Gvardiol, Porro, and Munoz, and then I've got the 2 4 millions of Barco and Face. I've then got Saka, Gordon, Eze. I've got Nkunku at the moment. I noticed neither of you guys have got Nkunku. I think I'm happy to give him a bit of a go at the moment, I think.
Excellent pick.
It's a good pick. I mean, I think it might take a few weeks. It doesn't scare me, especially when they've got City first up. It doesn't scare me not owning him for game week 1. I really think, he seems to be over his injury, but he's got no Premier League experience, really. A few sub appearances last season and no real consistency of start. So I think Chelsea can be a wait and see. Again, it's probably just battle scarring from last season, and Palmer is now appropriately priced, but he really dragged Chelsea through last season, and I'd like to see them improve. And their pre-season tour has generally 1 win out of 4 defeats, 4 heavy defeats. So no rush, I think. For Chelsea.
that is fair. And if I decide on that as well, I could potentially move. I can go down a touch and release, a bit more money. Haaland's and Isak, and I've got Solanke up front. This is obviously based on the basis. I don't think I'll be going with him if he stays at Bournemouth, but if he goes to Spurs, really soon, and then he's in the team and he's in for game week 1, I just, especially as a Spurs fan, I won't be able to resist him at 7.5. There is a temptation if it doesn't happen. He's just a place. I like that placeholder price point. It's only half a minute to have it. But I can also go to Wood, who I really, really fancy as well for the opening few games, and Mooney's as well, and and release another 1.5 where I could upgrade around, or even upgrade Nkunku to someone else, or upgrade Franca to someone else. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and I like, and this is what I'm talking about, the structure. I really like my structure I've got here. I think I like my squad, but I've also got a bit of flexibility with the 0.5 for the keeper. Nkunku I can move up or down. Solanke I can move up or down as well. I think I'm pretty much locked. I say locked. It's obviously easy to say locked based on what we know, right? Isak, Haaland, Gordon, Eze, Saka, Porro, Gvardiol, potentially Munoz. But it's just those other spots. But yeah, really, really happy.
Very interesting that we haven't collaborated over this before. We've shared teams, so all three of us got Saka in that spot. That's very interesting and actually really
Eze as well. Eze as well.
Yeah, Eze, and good.
Saka, Eze, Haaland, Isak. I mean, those are the 4 picks that have been constant in every squad.
Good point in the chat as well about Jota. Obviously, he's a 7.5 midfielder in this game.
Yeah, he's 7.5. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
That could be the one, and Nkunku to Jota could be the move. A bit, obviously later in the week if we get the news that Darwin's not back, etc., like imagine getting a nice haul off a low-owned Jota in game week 1, going into game week 2. That would be sweet. So there's things like that I've got my eye on, which is why I'm keeping flexible. I could go Nkunku to Jota and Solanke down to Muniz or Wood, just as an example. So yeah, really, really like it. So yeah, I think we're closing in. It looks like we're all closing in without Salah at the moment, which obviously we will wait and see until next week.
I bet when we're doing a pod with Jonas next week, and he's got Salah in his squad, and he's the number 1 in the world, and we're sitting there with our knees knocking, taking him on. Let's see if we get through to Friday, Fergie.
Indeed. But that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in the chat. Those who are going to watch it back, and those listening on the podcast versions, your support as usual is much, much appreciated. Rich, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
At Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter. I'm tweeting a lot at the moment. I don't know. I've got the bug. So talk to you on Twitter, guys.
Awesome. And Bakar, thank you so much as usual. Great insight, great intelligence, great strategy.
Thank you.
Always love having you on. Where can people get hold of you?
At Big Man Bakar, BIGMAN BAKAR on Twitter, on Instagram.
I'm sure everyone in the world knows you and follows you anyway, Bakar. My handle on Twitter or X is at FFH_Fergie. Drop us all a follow if you don't already. This podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. We'd really, really appreciate it. And remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you haven't already. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Just a reminder, I recorded this team earlier with Jack, and it's going to be out as a video tomorrow. It's a lot longer. It's going into detail on kind of all these picks of why I'm going with them and who I've been thinking about as well. So drop that a watch and a like if you haven't already. And Rich and I will be back next week, next Thursday, 5:30, 26 hours from the deadline, with a game week 1 team reveal special and a winning FPL tips section of the reigning FPL champion, Jonas Sand-Labak. It's about as good as it gets next Thursday, so make sure you join us there. In the meantime, enjoy the tinkering, and good night all.